Good morning and welcome. My name is Professor Alexandra Ryder, and I'm an assistant professor of communication here at Georgia Highlands College. And it is my pleasure and honor to introduce my student Yasmeen Olass, who's going to be presenting her honors project on feminism. Yasmeen.
Thank you. And now, you want to start? 3, 2, 1, and go. Think about every time someone has said or taught you something that is sexist, feminist, or even plain out rude. Think about how your class, your friends, even yourself, or the media views these topics. Hi, my name is Yasmeen Olass, and my topic is on feminism. In this topic, we're going to discuss the 3 main key points: the past, the present, and the future of feminism, as well as the people who have helped impact it, as well as the events. Sorry.
And go back.
Weather. I have gathered my following sources from Beyonce.com, Women's Rights, ConstitutionCenter.org, History.com, Women You Need to Know by Them, the American Association, and as well as a book called Her Feminism by Nikki Kendall. Again, I'm sorry. First, we'll look at the past. Some wonder why it's called history and not her story. You see? So first, we'll look at the events as well as the people who have helped impact the past of feminism. The first, we'll look at 2 events: the Seneca Falls Convention as well as the Women's Rights Movement. And we will look at 2 impactful women who I believe are the reason why we have feminism as it is today. First, we'll look at the Seneca Falls Convention. According to Beyonce.com, Seneca Falls Convention took place in July in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. It also is called the birthplace of American feminism. This actually has a lot more controversial topics that it needs to be talked about, because there was a lot of riots and protests due to women gathering by themselves without a male person there to overlook it. And with this, it caused lots of problems, such as trying to ratify the 18th Amendment, and the 19th Amendment. Next slide, please. And you might be wondering, what else helped impact feminism in the past? Well, the women's rights movement, which we all know and learned in school, it took place from 1845 to 1917. According to Beyonce.org, it's also called the Liberation Movement, which I like to call the LE movement. It is also recognized as the second wave of feminism because most times we only look towards the women's rights movement and not the Seneca Falls Convention movement, which we really should look at this as the second wave, and the Seneca Falls as the first. It started for equal rights for all women of color, race, and even gender. It also helped ratify the 19th and the 18th Amendment. And now, the first woman who we should look at, which some people don't know about, but I believe should be taught in schools, is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Most people don't know her, but she's actually the woman, the front runner of what feminism started. She wrote the book, The Declaration of Sentiments, which is actually a book that actually is made from the Declaration of Independence, which actually says that we should all allow women, men and women, to have the same equal rights and the same equal liberations and the same equal chances. The reason why she actually passed and actually wrote this book is because her daughter's husband died at the age of 19, and her daughter was about to lose all the rights to her land, to her family, and her boys were being sent off to war because, according back then, women had no right to say what happens to their son. So she pushed forward and actually fought for these rights. And now, next to her, you might be wondering, who is her background woman? Who is her second-hand woman? Please. You might know her as Susan Brown Anthony. She is who I like to call the best person to look at if you're looking at feminists, because she actually fought for it. She was arrested, and she actually fought so hard that even her husband divorced her because he thought that she was doing too much, or as they called back then, she was too involved in politics as a woman. She, according to History.com, helped start the suffrage movement and also founded an organization that is still in process, the ARS, which is the American Equal Rights Association, which is actually also found in European countries such as England and New Zealand, and also some Asian countries such as China, which are all trying to still fight for equal rights for all women around the world. And my thoughts on her is because with her and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, what would feminism be like? Because without their advocacy and their push to strive to forward and push forward life and equal opportunity for women like us, what would we be in today's world? Yeah. And now I would like to highlight some women which I believe did not get the limelight I had, but are one of the ones that we should look at and actually teach more in school. We have Susan True, who is in the abolitionist movement and also a civil rights activist. We have Barbara Walters. She actually is the first female anchor on the news ever, even as a woman. Even though she's a white woman, she still is one of the first women ever to break the news. She has Barbara Wells, the first ever American journalist who was a woman of color. Frances Walker's and suffrage movement teacher, was actually one of the first African American teachers ever in African American history. And also Diane Newt she's also actually the one, if you do not know, MLK did not start the boycott movement. He was not even the one that actually brought it up for them to boycott the buses. It was her idea. And even though she's not given credit, I believe credit should be given where credit is due. And now that we talked about the past with the events as us as women who have helped impact it, we'll now look into the present of what feminism is today. Again. So we'll look at three events actually. We'll look at the 19th and the 18th Amendment, as well as Roe v. Wade, the Texas abortion law, as well as the Me Too movement, and two women who I believe have impacted feminism in the present. We'll start with the 18th Amendment. We all know this because it's basic things we learned. 18th Amendment is actually to stop the ban of making, transportation, and giving out alcohol. But according to history.com, there was actually a reason why the 18th Amendment was passed. Because in the 1800s, 2 in 3 women were actually killed during their first month of marriage because their husbands overtook the consumption of alcohol, and which caused them to be beaten or killed because the husbands didn't know how to work with these alcohol situations. So the government, low-key, actually listened to women and thought about their safety and actually helped stop the 18th Amendment. It's not how they're trying to stop the cartels from passing the drugs or alcohol. It's actually to protect the women who are being killed severally throughout the years. Next slide. Now, the 19th Amendment, we all know this. It gave us the right to vote. It gave us the right to education. It gave us the right to be who we are today. And I believe that without the women's rights movement and without Seneca Falls, this would never happen. Because think about it, we still live in a world where other countries are still fighting every day to have equal rights for their women. In Palestine, in Israel, like countries are like these, women still are treated like second-hand people, what they should be treated in an equal side as men. Without these amendments, I believe that we would not be an example to other countries and other women around the world. Just know that if we can do it back then, that they can also push it even in 2020 and 2022. That nothing is impossible if you have women backing you up. Next slide. Now, the next I will look at is Roe v. Wade. Now, I won't say much about it, but it's very a controversial topic. And even in the news today, we're fighting this right now in court. Roe v. Wade, according to Olass.com, took place in 1917. It's also called 4110 U.S. Now, what was really passed, according, and I quote, to Constitution.com is, the Constitution of the United States protects a pregnant woman's liability to choose to have an abortion without excessive government accession. Now, with this law being passed, according to the Supreme Court, it is still being challenged every day in states like Texas, who have passed the abortion Texas law, aka Bill 4. 2021, on September 21st, Governor Abbott signed Bill 4 in order to be able to ban abortion in Texas. And now you might be wondering, what is this Bill 4 really about? Bill 4, and I quote, according to the TexasBill4.com, from this bill bans anyone from providing an abortion-inducing drug to a pregnant woman without satisfying the government officials and the government rules. Now you might be wondering, what government rules are you really talking about? This government rule shows that if anyone who, okay, example, I am a woman and I have been raped by a man, and he does not want me to carry, he wants me to carry that child, but I'm having health problems, I will not be able to have an abortion to protect me because he, according to the law, is the 50% of the father, 50% of the woman. So my 50% is taken out because he overrides me, because in Texas, actually, men do own women. And actually, there's the Texas Amendment, which actually says that it's still in life that a man can sell a woman for a cattle if he wants in Texas, according to the TexasConstitution.org. Read more about it. And now you might be wondering, is there any penalties to this abortion law? Yes, if anyone is found to either have an abortion or is helping someone have an abortion, you can face up to 2 years in prison and a $10,000 fine each year that you are staying in Texas. And with this actually comes a lot of problems, because there is a reward system for you to report someone who's had an abortion. It actually gives you $10,000 too if you have reported that someone either is planning to have an abortion or have had an abortion, to have evidence that they have had an abortion. Wow, what a world we live in today. Next slide. And now the next thing we'd like to move on to is the Me Too movement. And this is actually a very huge thing for me, because I actually had to testify for a friend of mine in work, because she had a situation like this. She was being sexually harassed by her lieutenant colonel in the army. And I actually had to be there and say that, yes, I have seen him touch her in an appropriate way where she is uncomfortable, and actually had to help her get out of that situation. According to MeTooMovement.com, they believe that their advocacy is to provide a source of solidarity for all women who are being sexually harassed in workplaces, because this is actually a very common thing, and it's not spoken a lot about, because we live in the 2020 where a woman's place is to be quiet and shut down, even though we've had so many years of freedom. But it's not the same freedom as men, and it really hurts, because things like these are being hushed down and being pushed down. But it should be spoken more, because if you speak more about it, the more good things come out of it. Next. And now, I would like to look at the people who have helped impact feminism. And my first, people like to say she's a little controversial, but I will say it's Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, I believe, is actually one of the main people who we should look at to feminism, because she broke so many barriers that were holding us. She is the first ever, according to History.com, first ever woman ever to actually represent the Democratic Party in 2016. Even though she won the popular vote, she didn't win the electoral vote. But you can see that people are actually pushing forward for a woman to be in power, because women like her show greatness. Because, in example, in New Zealand, they have the first ever woman president. In Germany, the first ever woman president. Even in Barbados, a few weeks ago, who just left the power of the Queen, had the first ever female president. This is showing that women who strive, like Hillary Clinton, who push forward, even though she had all these background, all these scandals, she still struggled and pushed forward to know that we women can actually be in big places like that. And she even was also the from 2019 to 2013, she was the Secretary of State in the United States. Many people overshadow that, but I believe it should be shown that even though she didn't become president, she still had a huge role in the background in the White House. Next slide. Now, someone who's actually in power right now, and I like to say is, I look up to her as a woman of color, is Kamala Harris. According to WhiteHouse.com, Kamala Harris is a politician, a lawyer, and even a loving mother, because she shows people of my age, and my color, that a woman can actually be the second highest person in the United States government ever. She actually was the first woman of color to be ascended in the state of California, and actually also the Secretary of State in California as a woman of color, according to History.com. Did you also know that she actually did not want to become vice president, because she was afraid of all the backlash that she would get, because one, she's a woman of color, two, she's a woman. She was afraid of all the negativity that would come of her being a woman in power, but actually she has risen up and shown that she is comfortable in her position, and she's showing people like me, women like me, that we can actually push for it and get into leadership positions. And actually, a few weeks ago, she was technically for 10 minutes the president of the United States due to Mr. Biden going under anesthesia, but a few minutes ago, she was the president of the United States. Next slide. And now I would like to shout out some women who are actually empowered and are still doing so great. We have Olass von Learn. She is actually the president of the European Commoners. All this is according to history.com. We have Oprah, who is a huge role model in the African American community, who shows us that it doesn't matter from what background you come from. You can come from the slums, but you can always make it up top. We also have Mary Barber, who is the CEO of General Motors, the first ever CEO who is a woman who actually controls a vehicle company ever. We also have Lala Mavari, who we all know and her story, who have all inspired us to push for education. And we have Christine Lagarde, who is the president of the European Central Bank. The second highest bank in the world is controlled by what? A woman. And now I move on to the present and the future. And now I will talk about my views on feminism. I have first an interview with Dr. Dana Nichols. Next, a survey I conducted with women to women, brothers to brother, and also a public general public, and also the future of feminism and my thoughts. So, a few weeks ago, or a month and a half ago, I asked Dr. Dana Nichols a bunch of questions which I wanted to see her thoughts on feminism. So, it's a long, but I'm going to help cut it short and only pick up the main things she said. So first, I asked her, can a feminist hurt your career? And when she said, it has never hurt hers, but she has experience and seen how feminism can hurt someone else's career. But she believes that being a feminist should not have an impact on your career or what you do in life, because it's just a word or just a name. It's not what you're doing in life. The next question I asked her, is feminism a controversial topic? And when she said, yes, it's really a controversial topic, because what feminism was has changed from what feminism is in today's world. In her own words, she said, being a feminist means I am committed to advocating equal opportunities and equal rights for all sexes. And one of the quotes I really like from her that she said when I asked her this question is, Dr. Dana Nichols, is the word feminism a controversial topic? And which she said, we are stronger when we are all have equal rights, empowered with equal rights and equal opportunities. With this quote, she just overall masters what feminism should be, how we're not only empowering women, but also empowering men or transgender. We're all empowering every sex, everything that is whole. We should empower them, because the word feminism has been thrown around and has been changed for years. Now, the next topic I asked her, what is your view on feminism? And she says, my view of feminism is equality for all. And then she says she's seen how mistreated women are, because in the workplace or at home, because they're just trying to push for equal luck and equal opportunity. She said she believes the definition of feminism has been lost, because feminism now is seen as degrading men or putting men down because they're men and we're women and we have to find equal rights. No. Feminism, in my view, and what everyone's view should be, is empowering men, women, and everyone. Feminism should not be, as it's seen now, is degrading men to a lower level of putting, as she said, and I quote, men in their place. Because we all live in the same world and we all experience the same things. Why put down someone when you can empower them in a stronger way? Next. I asked her, what does she think of the gender pay gap? She said she 100% believes there's a gender pay gap in everything we do. She believes that we as women need to advocate for ourselves when it comes to talking about compensation and salary, because she's seen how men talk about how much salary they should have, and they also hire it or lower it. But we as women, when we hear the salary amount, we just say, okay, and just stop talking. Why do that when we can actually advocate for ourselves? Because we know how much we're worth. We go to the same amount of education as men. We should advocate for ourselves for equal salary, equal rights. Because if we don't do this, we're being pushed back and seen as lower class people, because we're not advocating for equal rights. And if we keep doing this, we will see that the gender pay gap will actually be non-existent. Because if women keep pushing for the future to have equal pay, then there will not be any gender pay gap, because we should all have the same pay as all genders. And then I asked her, what are your thoughts on the sexual orientation here at JC, because I wanted to ask, well, how does JC impact women who are lesbian or men who are gay or anyone who has different sexuality? And she said that even though females make up most of the minority here at JC, they have a safe zone training, which is actually, I learned from Mrs. Reader that it's actually very impactful. It helped teach her, and many teachers I've gathered that it helped teach them how to go about someone who's going through a sexual phase, not knowing who they are, not comfortable in their own skin. These help teachers advocate and see what the students are going through, because due to COVID, not many of us are still back where we are mentally or physically. We're still in the COVID zone. We're still struggling to go back into the light. We're still struggling to actually have conversations with people. And TSC takes pride in having such things like these, like the safe zone training, because it actually helps teach people and students how to talk to people who are struggling with things, because you never know what someone's going at home. You never know what someone's thinking. And you always want to be there for someone because you never know what they're going through. Next. I asked her, how does her role, because this is a personal question of mine, I just want to ask her, how does the role of intern president differ from other jobs? Because before I got here, I didn't even know there was something called the intern president of a school. And she really taught me that it is just like every other regular job, but she actually does more in the background than we see. Even though she is the intern president and a female, actually, she gets to talk to the Senate representatives, state representatives. She gets to advocate for our school. Even though we're seen as a smaller school, because bigger schools like Kennesaw and JSU, we're actually being also seen as schools as their level. Because even though we're considered a community college, it's not the same. And with her push and her forward, we will expand more into going to different classes, having more things, and also maybe, hopefully, have a cafe here in the Paulding County site, hopefully. Next. And then I asked a bunch of surveys. I asked the female, woman to woman, and also my classes. And people at Walmart shockingly actually stopped and take my survey, and Target, even the Salvation Army did too. So I asked them a bunch of questions. I'm gonna only pick 5 that I actually like. I said, can a feminist hurt your career? And according to my survey, 75% believe that being a feminist can hurt your career. So then I added a job box and said, why? Can it hurt your career? They said, because being a feminist, to me, is degrading men. And I don't, quote unquote, want to be that person. And I also want to find out whoever said that, because being a feminist does not have to be that limelight, because it's not. It's what it's looking like. Maybe a few years ago when everything was going on with pushing forward feminism, there's always a good and a bad to everything in life. And I always want to tell that person, hopefully you don't see it like that, because being a feminist means I'm impacting you and you're impacting me. It doesn't matter what our gender is, what our sex is. And then I asked them, is being a feminist weird in 2021? And they said, yeah, being a feminist is so weird. According to my survey, 65% of people say being a feminist is a weird name because they don't like the word feminist. And I'm like, what do you want it to call them? If it's not feminism, then what else would you like to say? And someone actually said, why don't we call it meninist? But I'm like, what do you say about that? Because feminism is like saying you're empowering women. Feminism is a word. It's something that's had us since the 1700s, since Seneca Falls. It is a way we actually advocate for women. And it's a word that I believe should still be a word and not be kicked out like other words. And then I actually asked a topic which I learned that many people in the United States are not actually aware of, which is the BDS movement. So I asked, what is the BDS movement? And 96% said they don't know what the BDS movement is until I said it. And the BDS movement means boycott, divestment, satisfaction. This is actually a movement that's happening in Palestine, because now the Palestinian government has now started doing new laws where a woman cannot even walk to her front door without having a male escort. A woman cannot go to work. Women are now, their education is being stripped away, degrees are being stripped away, women who are now in power are being taken away because the Palestinian government believes that a woman's place should be at home, covered head to toe. I do not advocate for women being put down. But I did not say that women should be taking away their education. Education is a natural right that should be given to everybody. It should not be taken away due to your race, your color, or your identity, because it's something that is universal and should be universal. According to the BDS movement, the Palestine government actually arrests 6% every day Palestine women who are actually protesting. And according to the 2013 BDS movement, 22,360 women were killed due to actually protesting for equal rights. Why are we still fighting the battles that we fought for years ago? Why are we still pushing for the same rights, the same equality, where it should be an equal thing, an equal possibility? Because according to, we know now, 96% of the world actually in 2027 is going to be women. So why are we pushing back women where in the next 8-10 years women will be the highest gender, more than men? And the next question I asked them, do you think a feminist hates men? And actually, I got mixed reviews. I got 75% said, yes, they believe a feminist hates men. And I actually do believe them, because there are some feminists out there who are rude, who are intolerant to men and to who they are, because they believe, oh, they've had it easy. But we women have problems, and we also know the problems that our men are facing every day. And someone actually left a comment saying that he was almost arrested due to a female lying on him because he did not want to sleep with her. And I was like, yes, you see, things like these actually bring a limelight to feminists who are against what the feminist movement is. That's why I want this speech to educate people, so that feminism is not about degrading people, it's not about pushing people down. It's about inspiring and pushing forward the same equal rights as everyone. And the last thing I asked them, thoughts on gender orientation, and show someone who is not considered a female be a feminist. And actually, I got a 50-50. 50% said that a feminist should not be considered any sex, so meaning if you're gay, if you're transgender, you should not be considered a feminist. A feminist should only be female. And I believe, why is that such a topic? Why is that even brought up? Because I think it's the way people are being raised in the limelight. Because if you look at the past, people were raised to believe that a woman's right is to clean, to cook, to give babies, and that's it. But now we're seeing that women are in power, women are pushing forward, women are striving to be something great. And it shocks me, it's scaring people, actually, next. Which actually I found out in Brother to Brother survey. I found out that, I asked them, what attributes does their family have towards feminism? And I actually got 2 people who believe that their family is against anyone who considers themselves a feminist, because they believe that a man should be the breadwinner of the family and a woman should not. And it's really shocking, because we're now seeing that more men are actually becoming stay-at-home dads, while more women are being the breadwinners of their family. And according to We Know Now, 65% of women in 2021 are now the breadwinners of their family instead of the men. And I actually did an essay on this for my final in English 101. And actually, I did find out that men who take paternity leaves are more likely to be good fathers than men who don't. And this actually shows that if a man and a woman do have the same time to bond with their child, it actually leads to less abuse and less murders. Because according to WeKnow.com, 65% of murderers are actually people who do not have a father figure in their life. And it's really shocking, because you would think that a mother figure will be the cause of why we have so many murders, but no, it's actually a son or a daughter wanting her father in her life to be actually something great. And without women and men having the same equality and the same time off, how will we ever move on from the background if we're trying to push forward the future? And I asked them, brother to brother, what are their thoughts on the pay gap? And 100% said, They believe there's a pay gap. They have said they have seen there's a pay gap. They know there's here in JC, at work, in their family, and I 100% agree with them. There's a pay gap. So I asked them, why? And what can you do to help? And they said, 3% said nothing. That they believe there's nothing you can do to help this pay gap, that it's gonna be there. While the others said advocating for women's rights, pushing for equal pay, and actually being an advocate for women, knowing that they actually are in need of equal pay. So then I asked them, what are your thoughts, a feminist, as a man? Like, what do you think it is in today's life? And actually, it's really shocking to see that men still see us, women, as like lower class, because I actually had a few people that said that being a feminist, they would not want their wife to consider them feminists because they want to be the breadwinners of their family, or they would not want someone else being the supporter of their family when they should. And I believe it's like, especially we live in the South, this is like the Southern way of thinking, how a man is the breadwinner and the woman is not. But I want to educate the people who took this survey for Brother to Brother, the journal survey, that we can all fight for the equal opportunities, because we live in a world where women are being the highest paid woman, where we have a woman in office who is stronger. We have Nancy Pelosi. She's the third person, if anything happens to Kamala Harris and Mr. Biden, she's the highest ranking woman ever in the whole world. And it's really shocking because we still see women in power, like Dr. Dana Nichols, and we're still thinking in the past and what the past is. Next. And then I read a book. I read a book in 8th grade. It was my 8th grade final. I read a book on Her Feminism by Nikki Kendall. This book actually taught me so much more than I ever thought. So I actually wrote to Nikki. She didn't respond, but I think, she's busy. So I asked her, so I read, she said in her page, she said, the only way we can forget and forgive is to move forward and forget about the past. That we can forget about the past and advocate for our future, because feminism is something that's here to stay and not here to go. And I agree with her, because if we keep getting into leadership positions, such as being the president of our club, being an interim president, like for me, I was the top 5 in my battalion with all men. I was the only female in my battalion to ever have a high position. And I also break barriers in my high school as the first ever female Raider commander to make it a state, even though I was told I would never make it. None of these male teams, all the male teams would go and my females would stay back. But I actually advocated and pushed and even got to the board in Paulding County schools and told them that my team will be going to that state finals and they need to advocate for us and they need to give us money. And even though I was looked at and thought, oh, she's not going anywhere, I proved them wrong and showed them that even though we're considered women, we can do the same thing as men. We were given the same challenges such as the male teams were given, and we actually beat them and showed that we as women can push forward our own advocate rights. And I believe that the future of feminism is bright. You know why? Because I see it right here. I see women like us pushing forward our daughters, our future grandkids to actually rise up from what it is and push forward the new life, because the future is bright for everyone. And if we keep pulling in the right direction, we can actually find a future. And now, I'd like to do a quick conclusion of my speech. In my speech, we discuss both the past, the future, and the present of feminism, as well as the people and the events that helped impact it. And now, let's leave it with some kind words from Benjamin Young. He said, you can educate a man, you educate a man. You educate a woman, you educate a whole generation. Thank you. And I can thank Georgia Highlands, Green Highlands, Brother to Brother, Woman to Woman, and the Students Without Borders for sponsoring my essay and my speech. Thank you.